So today we're going to try to answer some questions regarding motorcycles and paint. Some of the questions revolve around tires, some of them around other things like your favorite motorcycle and when did super bikes become super bikes. A lot of it is subjective, but there's a lot of good information between the lines. And I encourage everybody that has a question they'd like me to answer. I'll do my best, of course. If I have to do a little research, I'll do that. And I'll try to share the information that I've learned in way over 60 years of riding motorcycles, all different kind of motorcycles, competing in the dirt, competing on AMAR and motorcycle road racing, and just in general restoring and maintaining the small, humble bike collection that I have right now. This is volume 9 of our question and answer videos that we've been putting out. We've been answering the questions that come in on the comments section of our YouTube channel. I always give a short answer of something, but then I like to give a more detailed answer on the video. So these are people that obviously are subscribers or watching the channel. They have questions that maybe the information I can pass on is worthwhile. And if it isn't, didn't cost them a penny. So let's get down to shop and get started. So today I'm going to start off today's little sharing of information, and I think this is stuff we all have a varied opinion upon. And they're all valid. That's the problem, is everybody sees things a little different. So the first question today is from Jimmy. And Jimmy watched the video that I post, and I've posted several of them, say that the GS 1100, to me, in my experience with motorcycling, was the first super bike, a bike that was just crazy amounts of power. Well, he feels the Hayabusa was the first one. Now, if you like drag racing, no doubt about it, the Hayabusa and the 400 Kawasaki are just head and shoulders better than everything else. But then I think back and I said, whoa, wait a minute. I remember a day when everybody had a GS 1100 or a 1000 even. That was the drag bike engine of choice for many, many, many years. Maybe I'm just out of touch with everything. I don't do a lot of drag racing. I don't do any, in fact. But I did do a lot back in the late 60s, early 70s. We're going to get into some of that later on. I have some very interesting drag racing stuff. But anyway, the point that I'm making is everybody defines what a super bike is. Now, is a super bike a new Ducati Panigale with 200 horsepower? Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's an RD 350 is a super bike. In the time when I had mine, and you could go up against much bigger bikes and beat them in a drag race and who knows what. Anyway, but it's all subjective anyway. And what a lot of people have trouble when they try to define something, you try to define it within the window that you see motorcycling. Well, to a person that doesn't see it that way, just as an example, if you like RD 350s and I have a Triumph 650 and another guy has a Harley, we're all going to see what was the first real fast Harley and what was the Cafe Racer Harley, or the BMW, the 90S. Everybody's got a different opinion. And that's what's beautiful about motorcycling. That is the beauty of what we do and the passion we share. And this you always have to keep in mind. What one person thinks is the super bike of the century, another person looks at it, I don't really like that, it's too expensive, it's too cheap. Another person wants this model, they want a naked bike, like an MT-09, or some people want the most expensive bike just to show off their money. And some people want to have the most practical sit-up bike. And the beautiful part is there's room for everybody. And some people love these older bikes, and some people always have to have the most modern new thing. Room for everybody. Now, this is a really good question. Now, this is one a lot of people, I don't think I've shared a lot of this information in the past. Jim said he'd love to see my bike with a 4-into-1. Well, yeah, you know what? I have 3 exhausts for this motorcycle. I have a totally stock one. In fact, part of it is over on the bench. I keep it in the cellar so it doesn't get rusty and rotty over the wintertime, because a brand new GS exhaust that's not all rotted out is worth a few dollars. And I have on the bike now, and I'm going to show this up close and personal, and it fits. But there's one issue you have to know before it fits. Now, you can get, at least at the time, the late Frank Straub gave me this from his 86. He gave me an 86 Suzuki exhaust that fit right on. Except for one thing, the bracket in the back. And it looks like it would be an easy bracket to make. here's the muffler, but the bracket has to go like this around the muffler or up around the swing arm. It's a lot harder to make that bracket than you think so. So what I did, originally I took a piece of aluminum, just 1/4 inch aluminum, and hammered it out and made a rough bracket. Got it, took a ride on the bike, made sure everything didn't vibrate, and if you make that exhaust too tight it'll vibrate, and too loose it'll vibrate. But anyway, I got the brackets the way I want. Then I covered them with 20 or 30 rolls of layers of carbon fiber tow. So what that did is it made a really extremely strong bracket. I'll show that bracket up close and personal. But again, here's the advantage of having several exhaust systems. Now over the years I've experimented with several different exhaust systems, mufflers. I had carbon fiber mufflers you see on here. These were kind of loud, not a lot of baffling in there. And I made these, they made out of EPON resin. It didn't last forever. It was a compromise. Now the Huntsman resin that I made the R1 carbon mufflers from lasts a lot longer, but I didn't know that at the time. And these mufflers, I still have them. They could still be rejuvenated and reused. But I do like the sound of the 1986 mufflers. You're always trading something away. A lot of people don't really have a concept of, here, I'm the Yamaha or Suzuki or Harley or whatever factory. I could make a bike that would be rocket ship fast, super uncomfortable to ride, totally unreliable, needing maintenance every time you ride it. Yeah, nobody wants that. So they try to modify the bike so they can sell a lot of them. So they make something, and an MT-09 is a good example. They make a bike with a lot of nice features and try to keep the price down so they sell a ton of them. Everybody I know that's waiting in line to get an MT-09, that's the problem. They're so good at a good price, they sell out right away. And I do have other comments from people waiting in line for an MT-09. That compromise, if you understand how production works, it's nice to be able to make a super drag bike as an example. But how many are you going to sell? 10? You know, so they want to make something that people are waiting in line at the dealerships, and then they also get top dollar. But let me show this bracket. It's an interesting thing. A GS is a perfect example of a bike. Now Aaron had his with a 4-into-1, and he went bonkers trying to get the jetting right, and it was an endless thing. I rode his bike. We went riding one day, switched bikes. He rode mine, I rode his. And his had a whole different sound. It had a different sound when you backed off the gas. Now I personally, because I'm riding I got to ride 30 miles up to my riding area. I'm riding through a lot of populated areas, and there's a lot of law enforcement there. And I always think a loud exhaust says, hey, I'm coming down the road. You got an extra ticket in that ticket book you could give me? I don't want to get involved. I don't even want to get stopped, even though all my stuff is legal. It just ruins my day to get stopped. So I go with a radar detector, a quiet exhaust, and I try to, ahead of time, plan out where do they hide, and do they fly with helicopters or what? And I'll never forget that. Got a funny story. Every video should have a funny story. There is a video out on YouTube. I have watched it several times. I got to put the link in one of these days. The guy's getting chased by a cop in a helicopter, and he's hiding under a bridge. You know how that's going to work. And he puts the helmet down with the camera on the helmet. He shows himself going, I don't know if I'm going to get caught. And I'm thinking, that's the last thing I want to do when I leave the house. I want to, as Jose is so famous for saying, you go out the driveway, and as you cross the sidewalk, you start having fun. That's the beauty of a motorcycle. But let me show this bracket, because I'm sure there are a lot of people have these inquiries about GSs. There's still a lot of them out in the world where people actually ride them. So remember, this is an Evil Twin. I have two of these bikes, but this is an 86, the black chrome exhaust. It's not stock. When I want to Evil Twin this out with the blue bodywork, the gold wheels, sometimes I want to put the stock exhaust, but let me just show this. This is the bracket, and you think when you go to make it, it starts here, it goes around the muffler, and then there's 2 bolts on the bottom. If you go to make that, and you make it out of a too thin piece of aluminum, it's going to fracture. And if this bolt needs to be solidly mounted, and that bracket's got to be solid. If this is doing this, you're going to have resonant vibration. And I got so much carbon tow over the top of that, and it's 1/4 inch machinable aluminum to begin with. But that is a very, very difficult part to make, but it allows me to have 3 different exhausts for the motorcycle. And if you look up in the rafters, That is one of the exhaust systems I have that's got carbon mufflers that I made. They were made from EPON resin. They only lasted about 6 or 7 years if I remember right. And then they started to deteriorate, so I went back to the 86 exhaust. Now this is something I'm really excited about. A fellow named Paul, I'm not going to use his last name right now, but he sent me a bunch of really pro drag racing stuff and said he's a modeler. And in 1991 he was the national champion. He sent me pictures of magazines and stuff. Well, you know, Paul, anybody that's a modeler knows that there's a lot of similarities between the two sports. Anyway, and he sent me these things of pro drag racing and really fast bikes and everything. Les Mcdonald is another example. He's a world champion modeler and an accomplished writer. Actually, it's good for me to share this because a lot of people that subscribe know Les Mcdonald, know how famous he is. Les Mcdonald, at one point in time, we both had RD 350s, and we did share pictures and things like that. But he got an FZ09 when it was in the beginning, when they had all kind of little issues with the fueling and stuff. And he would send me pictures of the upgrades and the forks and the shocks and everything. But what it did, when I went to look at the MT09, that was in my mind. I said, you know, that's a bike that I always thought when Les was working on his, it was pretty cool, and it wound up being great for me. I can't tell you how happy I am with that. But anyway, what I suggested to Paul is maybe he has enough pictures and enough stuff. We could make an extended thing on one of these videos about his exploits in drag racing, and from looking at the pictures that he's already sent, he knows what he's doing. And I always think when you can share a passion with somebody, an interest, wow, you are so far ahead of the game. You're so willing then to learn from other people and then share the information. Now, this is a really good question, and I was really happy to answer this. Mike H. He thinks he's got an MT09, I guess similar to mine, but I don't think it changes if it's a more modern one or an FZ. I think this would be applied to all of them, but I'm not sure. But I'm going to finish this story because this is true. He thinks when he did his tire change, he put his wheel on backwards, or if he paid somebody, they put it on backwards. So a suggestion is, if you're new or you don't work on stuff, you're new to working on motorcycles, take pictures as you take something apart. Now see, you can see the ring on this side, and you know where that sensor is. Take pictures every step of the way, and then if you get confused or you don't remember, in my case I shoot video, but pictures are just as good. And then in the end, make sure to look at it and look at the picture and say, see, you would know right away that ring belongs on this side of the motorcycle. Because when he went for a ride, the ABS didn't work. The ABS light didn't go off. Well, that's a clue. And so I sent him a detailed email of the few ways to diagnose if you think that's the way it happened. And the first thing you can do is, if you don't have the manual, look online and see what the picture, that ring that goes around has the little slots in it. That's what controls the ABS. And he says he thinks he chipped it when he put the tire back on. Well, or off. But here's the thing. Now, I've taken mine on and off several times, including taking a fender off to work on it and replace the carbon fiber parts, the carbon fender. Here's the thing. That little wire is super, super, super delicate. And I always take it off and get it out of the way, take the calipers off, and then work on the wheel. So I've already sent him that information. But I'd like to pass that on to everybody. Now, the reason I said that is, Jose has told me more than once, and he's an accomplished BMW guy. He knows all the tricks and things with the BMWs. He said he had a friend, took a bike to a dealer, BMW dealer. When he got it back, the front wheel was on backwards, and nothing, you know, the ABS and none of that, the lights don't go off then. Well, if the wheel is symmetrical and it can go on either way, and I don't know if an MT09 does, because I've always put mine on the way it should go. But some of the wheels on some of the bikes are symmetrical, the spacers on both sides. So if you reversed it and you didn't look at the spokes, what is also can be a problem if you have the front wheel on backwards is if somebody does it for you and they don't know what the hell they're doing. The tire rotation will have the arrow going the wrong way. The arrow rotation should be in the way as if the bike were going forward. So anyway, that's that information from Jose. Mike, I hope that helps you. I hope you already got it sorted out and straightened out. Because the beautiful part about modern bikes having all these safety features, if you disconnect them, I don't know, an MT09, That traction control, I see that light come on all the time when I'm on these salty roads, wet roads. And I know on I use the traction setting that's the most invasive. Because on the roads I ride on, if you were on a racetrack, you would, or maybe you'd even shut it off, I don't know. But on slippery roads, roads with gravel and sand and little spots, just leave it on. And we're not racing anybody anyway, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, now this is I had a nice experience. I made that video, I think a week or two ago, about the Durometer. A fella named 9mm Nelson sent me a long detailed thing about how he has watched the videos. He has a Durometer too. He was keeping track of the way his Michelin 4s were wearing. They were cupping. They were doing something he didn't like. FJR 1300 is a big heavy bike, and maybe he rides with a passenger and heavy weight in the saddlebags. I don't know. So he's out of my realm of what I know firsthand. But I do know this. I used to use Michelin 2s on the R1. Again, relatively powerful bike. When I went to the 3s, they had funny wear. They would wear out, the middle would wear out, not the edge, and then the front tire would wear the edge and not the middle. I had all kind of crazy things happen. So I never bought a second set of Michelin 3s. I went back to Michelin 2s. But now I have the tires on there, the Pirelli Angels that Vlad recommended, and I know he's an accomplished rider, a track day rider and everything, and I know on his collector bikes, the Bermudas and all of the stuff that I know, he knows what that is. He's a tire dealer, so I guess he knows. Or maybe he's just selling me the junk he had left over. Vlad, don't you do that. But anyway, and I thought, I made a good suggestion. This would be something I'd do. I wouldn't even buy a set of 5s. I'd go and find a set of 6s, because the reviews on the 6s are pretty good. And Stefan in Romania also, they already in Romania have Michelin 6s, so why not skip over one step and then you could report back on how that worked. But again, with a big heavy bike like an FJR, a powerful bike for sure, they tend to eat the tires up. And then if you're a good rider, and I don't say good in terms of winning races, you're an aggressive rider, you're on the gas a lot, you're carrying a passenger, cornering hard, the more aggressive you are and the more weight you're putting through that and the more power, the tires tend to wear out faster. That's why I was so, with the R1, it was like you could almost not get 4,000 miles out of the tires. And because I'm riding aggressively, or why buy an R1? If you're going to ride it like a Goldwing, buy a Goldwing. Anyway, that's interesting stuff that I like to share. Now, we have some, this is the best one. I love this. And Jason, I know I've already answered this, but this is, I got to tell this story. This is the reason we make the video, so we can share these stories. And by the way, for anybody that's looking for high-tech stuff, and you don't want to hear anything but high-tech stuff, there's other places like Dave Moss, Contact Patch. Just look up Contact Patch on YouTube. And they do the technical part of this a lot better than I do, especially with racetrack tires and stuff. This is a funny thing. Now, Jason said he loves my Ferrari bikes, and he just was very, very impressed that he liked them. Well, I said, here's the thing. When I made the first one, the red one, we actually went to where we were meeting at the time, and there was a guy with a gray Ferrari, a doctor, and I put the bike right by the car, so the two Ferrari flags were just showing to each other, and I started taking pictures, and he came running over, and he was an Asian doctor. What is that, a Ferrari motorcycle? And I looked at his car and I said, oh my God, they make cars too. What, is that a real one, or did you just put that sticker on? Oh, and we had the guy actually, we were at other meetups, and this guy sought me out and, oh, you're the Ferrari guy. Now, it was probably for about 6 or 7 years I had my FZR as a Ferrari bike, and we had more scams and more fun with that. Oh my God, even at track day we had guys couldn't believe that it wasn't a real Ferrari. It was a lot of fun. Of course, it's all in jest. And I even had so much fun. I did the R1 too for a couple of years. It was just a lot of fun. And it wasn't like a mean scam. It was a great way to make friends with people that had real Ferraris. I thought that was cool as hell. And we did have, Luciano has a great story, and I'll share it. But this is part of the reason we like to share not only the technical stuff, but the little stories of our life. And for people that are not interested in our little stories, well, here's the fast forward button. Now, this is a great story. Luciano, we were going to a track day. Luciano had my bike. We had done some work on it, and he had the bike, the red Ferrari bike, in the back of the trailer. And he was going to the gas station to gas up, in the back of the pickup truck, to gas up the pickup truck at his gas station. And a guy pulled in with a Ferrari car and looked up and saw it and went crazy. He says, "Oh, that's a Ferrari motorcycle. I never saw one in the United States." And Luciano, being Italian, says, "Well, listen, they only sell them to people that are Italian. You got to prove you're Italian to buy the Ferrari bike." I had no trouble proving I was Italian. Yeah. So I don't know how much of these stories, I never get sick of telling them. And that's part of the passion we share. Every person I know has stories. And if we can get you to share some of your funny stories, the videos will get even more fun. Another funny story, when I was younger, we had friends when RDs were in their glory days that had Harley Sportsters, and we'd say, we'll have a race. The only requirement is you have to start your bike by pushing down on the Kickstarter by hand. Of course, the RD starts right up, and a lot of guys never even tried to start their Sportster. Here's one. I know people that are long-time subscribers to the channel that watched the whole 900-hour restoration of the FZR would notice. Scott. There's a lot of Scotts in the world. That must be a common name. How come it's not like Windy where there's only one or two maybe? Anyway, his question was, he loves the FZR, he loved the paint job, and he said, "Where's the headlight and the blinkers? You were talking so much about having blinkers on the bike that you could see. Well, where's the blinkers and where's the headlights?" Well, Scott, you're in for a treat. I made a special video that I'm going to put in the video right now to show you. And you'll see these are from a company called, I don't remember, I'll try to find the link to it, but they Ultra Bright, I think the name of the company is Ultra Bright LEDs, Ultra Bright, Super Bright. Anyway, they're special bulbs that they're very, very bright. Believe me, when you turn them on in the cellar, you almost go blind. But they fit right in. I'm not going to spoil this. You'll see. I'm going to put that video in right now. Now this is for my friend Scott, who asked where the headlights are on the FZR. And I thought I'd give him a little demo of the headlights. These are ultra bright, super bright lights, and they work great during the restoration. And you know that paint job really was a labor-intensive paint job, but it's all out on our channel, including these trick headlights that John Parthia found, the bulbs. And I think they're ultra bright or super bright. No, ultra bright LEDs. You see the little scoops they're in? You don't even notice it. And for people like that really think they don't want to see blinkers on a bike, this may really float your boat. Okay, so I'm back. Here we go. This is the kind of stuff I like. A fellow named Marco. He can't wait to see. I guess he's got an MT-09. Can't wait to see the 12,000 mile service. Well, I still have a couple hundred miles to go, and I try to do the service right when Yamaha recommends it. I don't try to do it like, I know some people say, oh, I'll do it 1,000 miles earlier or 1,000 miles later. It's easy enough for me to do it because I keep track of everything. I log everything in on the date and the mileage, every single thing I do. So it's easy for me to look back, and I never sell bikes, so I have the same bikes to keep track of for a very long time. So it's coming. I don't know when we're going to get more mileage, and the weather's been unpredictable, but I do try to ride the MT-09 more than some of the other bikes. Anyway, this is a great one, another nice one. A fellow named Robert, it came from Robert's Auto Detailing, and he asked me a question that I think a lot of people misunderstand. I'm going to try to explain this, and maybe this is just not a clear explanation, but this is exactly what the truth is. He said when he saw me lowering the handlebars, he said, lowering the fork legs, why not just put lower handlebars on or clip-ons? Well, doesn't do the same thing. When I don't have another pen here, maybe, yeah, I do. What happens when you have a bike and you lower the forks, let's do it this way. You change the angle of the fork. The fork angles ever so slightly, but believe me, the motorcycle and the tires know that angle has changed. Think of a chopper. It's way out, every chopper, and they go around a corner and it takes 10 minutes to get around a corner. Now, there's also a video on YouTube They made a bicycle with the two wheels exactly straight up and down, and they challenged people that are professional bicycle racers to ride it. Not one person could ride it. That video is on YouTube, the unrideable motorcycle, unrideable bicycle. So it's that rake angle is an ultra critical thing. Now by raising and lowering it, you do change that angle. If you don't change the angle and you just raise and lower the bars, you see it's two completely different things. It's like putting a lower seat on, or in some cases you put a different shock on the bike, or lowering links. Lowering links change the angle of the forks. Now a lot of people, and I've heard people say this, and I'm not challenging anybody, everybody has their own opinion, and a lot of people know a lot more than me, so that makes it a difficult thing for me to be, you know, on a pedestal or whatever, on the top of the mountain. When I put the lowering links on the R1, I did it for me because I'm more comfortable with the bike being a little bit lower. I did it for Chris, I did it for Luciano, I did it for several other people. I went out and rode the bike, and I didn't notice anything really big happening because I'm riding basically on the street. Now on a racetrack, yeah, you might notice something bad happen. Something, as an example, the foot pegs might grind up a little quicker. Yes, but on the street you don't notice it. And when I did Chris's bike after she fought me for 2 years, she was so happy. Anyway, but my point, and Luciano too, on his, we did his Kawasaki 1000, lowered it, he was as happy as could be. But if you lower it back with lowering links, it might be a good idea, if you want to keep the same geometry, lower the front too. You have a lot of choices. The point is, MotoGP bikes, they can raise and lower the swing and arm at the pivot point. The point is to fine tune it to suit what you think is right for where you're riding and your skill level. And that's not the same for everybody. A new rider wouldn't even know the difference. An experienced MotoGP rider would say, oh, you did that, you moved it a millionth of an inch. Yes, and all of us are somewhere in between. Now, I've had the R1 13 years, and in the time that I've had it, I've made all the changes to the bike, the bars, the seat, the exhaust, the wheels, the lowering links, lowering forks. I've done it all to suit me under the conditions I ride under. That would be a total different roadmap if I were riding exclusively on a track or if I were riding on big smooth roads. I tune the bike for me. Okay, we have a fella, and I don't know how to say the name. I apologize if this is a name I'm not familiar with. O-T-H-O-A-P, OTHAP, or maybe it's an acronym, I don't know. And he put out a comment. He said, lose the first 4 minutes of the video. He said it was terrible. All Laws was talking. Well, actually, a lot of videos are just talking. If you ever go for your master's degree in college, you'll find out there's a lot of talking involved. Anyway, and when you go for your second master's degree, there's even more talking, especially in engineering. So this is very funny. But then the second part of the comment is, he was real happy with the information. So I appreciate the criticism, but unfortunately on this channel, and I try to explain this, there is some technology involved, especially with painting. There is some things that I have a decent amount of knowledge of, and I try to share them. But I also like to share the personal side of the interaction with friends, the funny stories, the Ferrari stories, the Karen's garden, and you know, Dale's beautiful motorcycle collection in his 200-year-old barn. It's all part of a much bigger picture of motorcycling. It's not just about tightening bolts and going around the track and beating up on your friends. But anyway, after he said that, and he said it was the best video, I quote, it's the best video I've ever seen. So keep watching and keep sending these comments. Maybe I'll just shut up. See how that does. Anyway, I do appreciate, I don't want anybody to get the idea, I appreciate the comments. I appreciate them even more if you have a solution. If you say, oh, I don't like Turbo Steve's tank, I don't, but paint it red. Tell me what the advantage would be, or what the difference, and then we can share it. We can have a dialogue, and you can learn from me, I can learn from you, and we both win. So, this is I love this. A guy named Harlan. He got ideas from the video on how to, now he's doing a recreation of something I'm not aware of. A C. Bailey restoration, it must be a race bike, or an old antique bike. And he got ideas on how to do it from my videos. Well, I got the ideas from other people too, and maybe, isn't it beautiful when you can give me your idea, I can give you my idea? If you don't like my idea, you can just say, hey, I got a better way. And back, forth, back, forth. That's what makes for the sport of motorcycling being what it is. That it's fun, that it's safe, that it's economical, that we don't all go off in the same direction and make the same mistake. Now, a guy named Rich, controversial thing because I don't know the answer at all. He said, use ceramic, he must be an auto detailer or something to notice, use ceramic wax on new paint. Well, I went back and forth. Some of my friends, Rich Peabody gave some examples of why you shouldn't use it, of his friends who are auto detailers, and he's in the industry, so he should know. So when somebody's in the industry, I always think they might just know a little bit more than me. Just could be. But I don't know I never use ceramic wax. I don't have any to test. Somebody wants to send me some, I'll put it on Turbo Steve's bike when he's not looking, and we'll figure out if it works. Anyway, and I saved one of the best tips from Turbo Steve, and by the way, Turbo Steve has been a major contributor. He came up with the wind slayers, and that's a beautiful thing to have. I can't tell you, that changed my videos, and he shared it with everybody. He has his own website, and he came up with this, which I've heard from other people, to be honest, but I never did this. To use a hairdryer on faded black panels. Now I had one here. What the hell did I do with it? But when you have a faded area, especially if you're a flat black, people like flat black, and I don't, but even my MT-09 has some flat black parts. They tend to get a little gray, then really gray, and then a year or two later you look, and maybe this is what I don't like flat black. You can't buff it out, you can't do anything. You put WD-40 on it, make it shiny. But he had this idea, and I'm going to have to try this when I get something flat black, to using a hairdryer to get the flat black to pop again. Now I know that like the old muscle cars had the flat black stripes on the hood, the Killer Bees or Super Bees or whatever they were. I've seen guys in auto things do stuff with a heat gun. I don't know, but we're going to give that a try for the future. But as we do with every video in this series, I want to individually thank every person. I keep track of every comment. I keep track of the maintenance I do on my motorcycle, and when I think there's something worth sharing, I try to share it. Sometimes I don't really know the answer, but I try to put the question out there, like when we had the scratch windshield, because other people in my group of friends, there's always somebody that knows, and they're willing to share it. So it is absolutely the best of all worlds. And I would never want anybody to think, if you're the kind of guy that you go to a motorcycle dealer and you buy a new bike, you bring it in for service, you do an oil change, you do the maintenance, you have him put the tires on, you ride around with any group of friends, go to the meetups, that there's anything wrong with that. But what we do, what I call the people that are involved in this area of motorcycling, we kind of like some old bikes, we kind of like to do some of the maintenance, we kind of like to save the money. That's the money is the big thing. And we kind of like, and a lot of us, and Turbo Steve's just one example of people, to share what we've learned. Try to keep you from making a mistake we might have already made. Scott with his painting issues, sharing that information with a lot of people. I think, again, that's what makes motorcycling the enjoyable sport it is. So before I end the video, and because we're getting new people virtually every day, new subscribers, and thank you to everybody, of course, I wanted to try to explain what the purpose of our channel is, as well as sharing information. Now, this is a complicated paint jobs, whether we're painting or polishing wheels, or in this case, renovating a whole motorcycle over a whole winter. Every part of what we do, sharing our life with our friends who have similar bikes, every part of this is because we all share a common thread, a common passion. And the passion is whether you like two strokes, and here's some of the things we did, or if you want to know some little tips, and we're going to be doing some two-stroke tuning very soon, or you want to replace parts, you want to paint parts, or you just enjoy the rides we go on, or some of the exotic bikes we run into at the meetups, and the lives we share with our friends, their collections, their passion. It's all one big giant thing that I consider under the umbrella of we love motorcycles. And I've loved motorcycles since I was a young, not even a teenage kid, I think. Probably just before that. And back then, it was a whole different world. I had bicycles I made from pieces. I was painting things with spray cans. Now I try to share all of the things I've accumulated over all those years, the polishing of the GS engine and the tuning we did on the FCR. Some of the unusual bikes within our group of friends. Some of the ones you don't see every day. And some of the wonderful rides we go on. And the area of the country I live in, I'm blessed to live in an area that there's beautiful roads everywhere. Low in New York, up in New Jersey is just a haven for the kind of riding I enjoy doing. It's not really track bike riding, but it's aggressive sport bike riding. Some of the repairs we've done you would think that you'd be impressed. And the total restoration, and even where we hide the headlights on the FCR. And most of all, the biggest thing, the friends we've made on this wonderful journey of motorcycling. And my little collection of motorcycles took me many, many years. Actually, it took a lifetime to accumulate. And the one thing I regret is the bikes I sold along the way. I wish I had them all back. I wish I had years ago not sold. I wish I didn't sell my 55 Chevy. I wish I had never sold my Air Coupe. All of the things I sold along the way, it always comes back in the end. You wish you could buy them back. And in this case, every one of the bikes I have in my collection now is something that I've really wanted to have to keep for my whole life. And if you're new to the channel, or if you're old, or maybe you just like these videos, thanks so much for watching.